We're here to actually have a little fun. Jim, this was kind of your suggestion that let's chat about time, space, gravity, some of these multi-dimensional and amazing concepts.
Yes.
You and I have been talking on the phone a little bit about doing it, and we're here. We just finished with a filming of another class, and I'm ready to go. I know Adamus is ready to go.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think this gives us an opportunity to basically ask some questions and really open some aspects of consciousness that haven't been really available. And so my awareness is this is actually kind of a groundbreaking, even though I think the answer is going to be very straightforward, in a piece of information is being put into the mass consciousness to begin to choose differently.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
I like the way you put that.
Be interesting.
Well, and what we're going to do is Linda's going to go into some breathing with us in just a minute. It allows me to get really connected with Adamus. I'm going to be channeling Adamus with my eyes closed, which I normally don't do, but in order, this is such a kind of a deep subject that allows me to go, he takes me to other places when my eyes are closed. Probably won't even stand up, but I do want to take off my shoes before we
Please,
start.
that's
here.
important.
Please, yeah.
Your toes might get cold.
They are going to get cold, but it doesn't matter because I won't feel them. And this will be kind of interesting because I'll be channeling Adamus, and you're going to be asking questions, but I know simultaneously you've got Metatron, maybe some others hanging around, so you're going to kind of be asking questions and channeling, adding your own input,
Yes.
the way I understand.
Yes.
Okay, so this will be really interesting, and it'll be very, very interesting. I look forward to see what's going to happen.
Good.
And you know, if none of this works out, we're going to throw away the video. And if it works out, well, you're watching it right
Something
now.
something enjoyable.
And maybe that can be edited out.
That's true. Or maybe we keep it in because we like having fun.
With that, we're ready for Adamus and Jim Self to take us through this journey. But Adamus always requests, and Jeff, a little time for the conscious breath, the good deep breath. This is important because this is a time when Jeff really allows those energies to flow with Adamus. And each of us, you can feel your energy flowing in also. So please, take the good deep breath, that deep breath that flows, that breath where you open to the allowing. Feel, as you breathe, you can feel the energies shifting and allowing. So breathe deeply with awareness and consciousness. Breathe with all that you are. Feel the energies. Breathe with awareness. Breathe with all that you are in this now moment. Breathe.
I am that I am. The beloved Saint-Germain. Thank you for inviting me and the others in for this opportunity. We're going to be speaking in human words and human concepts, and at the same time, there's going to be an energy delivery on many, many other levels, because the human language, as beautiful as it is, has its limitations in explaining these things. So you could kind of say we're going to be showing pictures to each and every one of you, projecting pictures for you to get a better overall sense. I'd be delighted to answer any questions, and I'll be asking a few as well.
So I have a question as I start to look at this. One of the experiences that people have looked at in this whole shift is time and space as a part of this fabric of where we play in these different dimensions. But it's beginning to become clear that time and space are actually one thing when you combine them. And in that context, there is a field, a force field, that we call gravity. kind of holds everything together. But as you begin to look at time and space slightly differently, you begin to get a different perspective on what gravity may be. So can we start talking a little bit about time, space, and how it affects the human in present time?
Indeed. Time-space is motion. It's at its core, it's motion, and the two are actually a single component. Humans have broken it down into two different things, but it is the movement of light, energy, and experience through the I am. The I am, the individual, the human, is actually the static. It does not move, and that's been a misperception in science for a long, long time. But it's actually the time-space that moves, and in its movement is contained something called experience. As it moves through the I am, if it's brought to the I am, comes in contact, you would say, with the I am, and then moves through, it picks up something called experience. For the I am, for the human, the soul being, the residual for the soul being is something called wisdom. This comes as a result of the motion, the movement of time, space through them, the experience that they have. They gather this thing called wisdom. But as time, space continues its movement through and past them, it now has an interesting, amazing element of experience. It's not facts and figures. It's not what happened on a certain day, but it's actually rather a deep sensory feeling type of thing that adds now to the overall expansion, adds to the overall dynamics of this thing called time-space. That then goes into the cosmos, not just your physical universe, but into the cosmos, and ultimately changes this thing called Bon. Bon is, you could say, the fabric of all creation. It is the screen onto which the soul experience is projected, is made real. As time-space picks up experience, as it picks up depth, it changes the very fabric of Bon. So instead of just being, you could say, an unchanging static screen onto which the soul experience is played out onto or projected, it's constantly itself expanding, which gives ultimately more creation to creatorship. It gives more depth to the very art of creatorship that every soul is involved in. So you could say that creation continues to expand. Don't think in terms of time, space itself, but the ability of creation continues to expand. That is ultimately the absolute joy of creator, of the what you would call spirit, but also of every creator being. Ultimately, this expansion of Bon, of creatorship, allows a deeper and more meaningful sense of I am to every soul being. It allows every soul being to fall more deeply, as you would say in human terms, in love with themselves. You could also replace that term with more integrated with self, more knowing of self, more self of self, more aware of self. So that's really one of the primary reasons that this whole thing of time-space ever came to be. It was to facilitate the depth of creatorship for every creator. Some will tap into it much earlier, much faster than others. Some soul beings, some creators are still in the very infancy of their soul self, of their self-awareness. But others are much more mature, have much more depth in their understanding of themselves. And please know that this isn't like a goal, something that has to be fulfilled, something that's not like a destiny. It's simply a desire for more realization of the creatorship. It never ends. It's not like you're trying to attain this. It's the constant falling in love with thyself again and again. So perhaps a long answer to your question, but I wanted to give it the overview right away.
No, good overview. So one of the things about this world as we understand it in physicalness is there's a concept of gravity.
Yes.
And at the first blush, people would say it's what holds your feet on the earth. But this aspect of gravity where we're talking about here with regard to time-space, it has a lot to do with how thoughts and emotions are both thought and held. In my awareness of thought like despair, sadness, grief, anger, very sticky thoughts, very heavy thoughts, heavy in density. And so it's as if the gravity is magnetically more concentrated, pulls those aspects into your reality. As you think beauty, well-being, smile, happy, puppy dogs, those thoughts are much more airy, fluid, mobile, flexible, and everything moves. The wisdom begins to be observed and experienced as it passes through, creating that sense of awareness in the consciousness. So talk a little bit about those thoughts as we're moving from this third dimensional reality into a faster moving consciousness. Talk a little bit about how that thought and emotion, holding on to things as I'm not okay, plays out in this evolution.
Indeed. As time-space comes to the I am, comes to the being, in this case the human being, and the human then takes in those energies and begins their process of experience. And in these experiences, truly there is no good or bad, right or wrong, but the human mind will perceive it as such. To time-space, to the true creator, it's just an experience, that's all. But as there is this movement of time-space, which ultimately also brings light and energy and plasma into the experience, the reference point of the human's experience. And the human basically now, in a manner of speaking, will slow down or even stop that time-space movement, that motion, in order to have their experience. It's actually not slowed down, it's just put into a different dimensional attribute. But when it does, it creates a kind of a suction, which you know as gravity. Gravity is both a physical effect, and gravity is an energetic and even a psychological effect. It causes things to appear to stop, appear to slow down, appear to form. It creates something called matter. And ultimately nothing is solid, but it creates the illusion of matter or things that are solid. It puts a combination of magnetic, electrical, and gravitational forces even on things like thought. So you were saying that that sadness, depression, anger, they seem to be more dense because they have a way of actually slowing down this time-space movement, creating an even greater gravitational effect, and they seem to be denser. They seem to be less light. They seem to have a glue on them. In reality, they really don't, but you could say it's just traveling on a little bit different dimensional path that makes it appear that they're going slower. Whereas happy thoughts, light thoughts, joy, abundance, things like that, appear to be less dense. They're actually not, but the time-space is actually moving through those faster, whereas on the sad thoughts, the depressed thoughts, it appears to be moving slower. So a lot of interesting things happen in this. And again, this is all perception. So it appears happy thoughts moving faster, sad thoughts being heavier, moving slower. And you can see now that time, space, light, and energy moving through the human, moving through their experience. Now you have an imbalance because you have different speeds occurring, different rates of movement, which cause different rates of gravitational force. And again, gravity is not just objects falling to the ground, but this gravity is also, it affects everything. It affects emotions, it affects your mind, it affects your body. So you have these variable movements of time, space, of light, of plasma, and of energy, all moving through. And that's why oftentimes the human, really acclimated in time, space, gets very imbalanced because they can't handle the different perceived rates of movement. Now you have a variety of gravitational forces, gravitational pulls, seductions happening to a person. You have within the physical body at any given point, you would have tens of thousands of different gravitational pulls and rates and motion movements all occurring. And in a sense, the human body and the mind are trying desperately to keep it all together. What ultimately makes a difference is if you realize, first of all, that you, as a conscious soul being, are static. Everything is moving through you, everything. And it's a very unusual concept for most humans. It's as big of a concept shift as it was a long time ago, well, not so long ago, when humans were posed with the concept that the world was round rather than flat. They could just not handle that. They argued about it. They killed others for it, but they finally realized, no, the earth is indeed round. So you have the same thing, that there will be those who absolutely argue it. They prove it with their physics and with their measurement systems, which of course are limited. And they'll argue for the fact that you move through time and space. I love this discussion because I even get Einstein around for this, and I get some of the other great thinkers around because they too thought that, most of them thought that the human was the one moving through time-space, or if I would throw you an object, such as this coffee cup, that it is moving. Not at all. There is going to be such a breakthrough, quantum breakthrough in everything from physics to psychology to everything else, when there's that realization that it is time-space moving through you. And I'm sorry, I'm getting long-winded here, but
That's okay.
I enjoy the opportunity. Usually it's that Adamus part of me that comes in. Now, the other thing that's very important for anybody involved in quantum metaphysics is that when you realize that you're not going out trying to affect yourself through time and space and matter, that it's flowing through you, and that everything comes to you. You no longer have to go out and battle all these seen and unseen forces to survive, to create what little semblance of reality that you have, that you're there, and that it's coming to you. It being, again, time, space, it being light, it being energy, it being potentials and opportunity. It's coming to you. And it's only for you to be conscious and aware that it is coming. You're not chasing it. It's not trying to elude you. It's coming right to you. And if you are, like you say so often, Jim, if you are in the present moment, and only if you are in the present moment, if you are in the present moment and aware, then you literally get to choose to have any of those energies, any of those forces, any of those opportunities. You get to pick them, which ones you want. It all comes to you. In a relatively human analogy, you don't have to go out to the grocery store. You don't have to get dressed, get in your car, go to the grocery store, pick what you want off the shelves, wait in a long line, pay for it, and drive home. It changes. It is now that the grocery store comes to you. While you're laying in bed or sitting in your chair, it comes to you. And then you just imagine what you want: a cantaloupe, chocolate chip cookies, a pizza, a salad. And it's there. Not only there, but it's all pre-made, pre-organized, prepared, cooked, and everything else, and served to you by a butler. And it's a metaphor, it's an analogy, but it also could be a reality.
The butler.
The butler, yes. The robot butler.
Yes,
Yeah, it's always a robot.
Yeah.
So that's the shocking difference in all of this. And we could get into, and we would happy get into the physics, but I'm looking at this quantum shift of consciousness, and it only takes a few for it to start affecting everything.
Let me say that a little bit. So right here, a number of people listening to this are saying, "Oh, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
Oh, that'll be really good." No. He's telling you how it is. This is how it is. This is how it is. It's basically, I would like the apple, and the apple appears in your hand. The mindset, as we have it now, only allows you to go as far as, wow, that's going to be great when that happens. What we're saying is it's happening, and it's very available to you now. Now, it'll only take a few, and then a few more, and then
Yes.
all will have the experience in the fields. It's being put into those fields right now. But there's a shift that is, as you're speaking to this, very important. It's that place where you go into a space of consciousness. You know yourself. You're beginning to know yourself. We've just done that whole series on freedom and the heaviness of a lot of the thoughts, I'm not okay, I don't deserve. It's when those thoughts leave, when you let them leave, and it's almost as if you get to look up rather than looking down. It's in that looking up that you begin to be aware of the physics without going into the physics. You begin to access different dimensions. You begin to access different forms of creation. But you don't even have to know about all those. It's just simply the apple is going to appear in your hand. So if you would just consider that as a real opportunity rather than moving on from it in a few minutes, you're going to put that level of imprint into the reality that it is a possibility. And so these kind of conversations are very, very important because they begin to set the imprints in place. Would that be correct?
Indeed, and I'd like to point out one very important part of all this, and something that I've talked about time and time again. It's the element of power. Power is basically an illusion. Power is a dynamic for those who believe that you have to go out and get it, that you are moving through time and space, that you have to try to grab onto, you have to get energy outside of you. So it created a dynamic, a psychological dynamic called power. Over the ages, you have seen rulers or countries or business people, politicians, and everyday humans trying to use power to get energy. And it's truly absolutely an illusion. Energy is energy. It doesn't need any power. By power, I mean a manipulation. Power, I mean feeling that you don't have energy available to you, that everything else external has it and you need to get hold of it. Of course, people do it through money, through control, through psychological and physical manipulation and torture. So if you use power to bring that apple to your hand, have it manifest out of nowhere, if you are using a mental power dynamic, you're right back in the old game. You're going outside to try to get the energy. You are still in a reality where you are moving through time and space, and it kind of eludes you. However, if you understand that no power is required, that you simply put out your hand, or you don't even have to do that, but let's say you put out your hand, you imagine, you feel, not imagine, but you feel, you sense that this time-space movement, you sense it coming through you. You hold out your hand, an apple will appear. But if you use power, if you feel you're having to exert, that you're having to force anything or even overly focus rather than just being in the absolute moment and receiving, then you're using power and you're not understanding any of this. But if you can simply let that time space come through you, it will actually assemble the energies, organize the energies, and create that apple right in your hand. That's the amazing part of it. So that's so important to understand. The energy comes to you. It is there. It is available to anyone. And it doesn't matter what you think of yourself, what you've done in the past. It simply comes to you. I want to point out one other thing here too. As this movement of time-space, which also then brings in light, energy, plasma, as it's coming through you, and as there's this perception that it slows down while it's in this womb of experience, it creates an interesting effect, because here you have a natural movement of time-space, and it suddenly slowed down or stopped in this womb of experience, in the human experience. There is an effect behind it. It's kind of like a Venturi effect, because you have a flow that's suddenly restricted and then opened up on the backside. So you have the gravitational force or dynamic of everything getting slowed down. It's like kind of like damming up a river in a way. And then on the backside, you have anti-gravity. You have kind of a reverse dynamic to the gravitational force itself. It is this anti-gravity, it is this reverse effect, the Venturi effect, that is actually one of the keys to the whole energy situation on the planet. When scientists, researchers, or inventors with a very open mind realize that time-space is what's moving, not you, not matter, when they realize that, then they'll be able to tap into this enormous energy reservoir of anti-gravity. It is clean, it is simple, it's non-corrosive, it's really not explosive, but it could be made so. But it is such a clean energy force. And this is why I get very excited, because I see this coming into realization in this planet very, very soon. There's some who are very close to it right now.
That's very exciting.
Yes.
Very exciting. Kind of in that same space, but in a little different direction. The Earth is evolving very, very rapidly at this point.
Yes.
It's a living entity.
Mm-hmm.
In my another aspect of me in that sleep space engages in that evolution of the Christed nature of the earth every night. One of the things is the elementals, their job to a great extent, in very simplistic manner, is to reflect back to the human what the human thinks. Very simple. But in the process of us holding fear, anger, rage, resentment, that aspect is very prominent in the thought realms relating to the earth, relating to the human. And that's in the process of changing. But can you talk a little bit about how, I'm going to just call it that thought realm, that fourth dimensional space is thought. It's not physical, it's
Right.
thought. And those heavy I'm not okays all sit in that space, but that space affects the evolution of the earth
Yes.
as well as the evolution of the human. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Excellent question.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And it ties into so much of what you're teaching and what we're teaching and what we're all learning right now. You have a convergence of things happening like never before in the history of this planet. And by the way, I have to mention, this planet is so special because of all of its attributes, physical and mental and everything else, but it is up to now, it is the only planet for ascension, for enlightenment. All of the ascended masters who have ever been, whoever ever ascended and become enlightened, however you want to put it, have come by way of Earth. That will change, but right now it is so special because of that. It is also the planet where love was first realized, where it's first felt. And most humans think that love was created by God. No, not at all. Spirit never felt or experienced love until the humans did. Then Spirit knew what love was. But I digress a bit from the overall point. We have a convergence happening right now. Technology is growing at an exponential rate. And within the next, I'm going to say safely 5 years, the capability of technology are going to exceed the human mind. In some ways, they already have computations and memory storage and things like that. But as technology's computerization increases, in 5 years, it's going to go beyond the level of the human mind. And as I pointed out in a few of my talks, that there's those who say, well, we're only using 20% of the human mind. But not at all. You're using 100% every day. Now, it has the potential to expand, but you're using 100% every day. So in this convergence, technology surpassing the mind, and in this convergence of consciousness truly coming to some, the awareness coming to some, there's also another factor in the convergence is that there are some physicists who are beginning to understand consciousness as the dynamic element in all of creation. And this is not a religious, these people are atheists. It's not religious or spiritual. Their understanding, they're not calling it consciousness yet, but it's other things. They're understanding that this is the missing link, the missing ingredient, but they're struggling because it can't be measured and it can't be quantified in human terms right now. So you have this dynamic coming in. You have tremendous research that is coming from small laboratories all around the world, as well as places like CERN. All of this is coming together, and you have a lot of humans who are still in a very slow experience, in a very heavy or dense experience, and essentially don't really want to get out of that, even with every opportunity they have. You have this, what you call fourth dimension, or the near-Earth realms, where you have heavy thought concentrations. It's like this very dense cloud kind of surrounding the Earth. So what's going to happen in convergence is a energy so dynamic, so strong, it's like two lightning bolts hitting themselves, that it's going to do one of two things. It's going to either fuse this earth together, it's going to bring together all the elements, the old and the new and the conscious and the unconscious. It's finally going to provide such a dynamic charge that it's going to fuse them together, or it's going to blow them apart into two different worlds, into basically old earth and what we have termed loosely new earth. Those who are on new earth, we're not talking about explosions and physical. It's just going to make a multi-dimensional shift into two distinct places. It's not going to hurt anybody. The worlds aren't going to explode. It'll suddenly just shift. Those who are in the new earth, in the higher consciousness, will be aware that a shift happened, and they'll rejoice. Those who stay on the old earth, much denser, much older, and a power-oriented place, are not going to realize that anything happened. They really won't, because their consciousness is so low. So this fusion or separation, I don't want to give it an exact date, it depends on so many things, but I would say for many of you, it's going to happen in your lifetime. There's nothing to panic about. You don't have to go and buy guns and store up food or anything like that. It's just going to happen. It is actually the movement of time and space responding to two diverse elements, and is just going to move them both off onto their own path. And one will continue faster, have energy movement faster. The other will continue to halt or slow down energy.
Yes.
And Caldera is apologizing, not me, for being long-winded about all this.
No, this is good. This is good. Let's take this into one more question in this regard.
And then I'd like to ask you some.
Oh, very
Yes,
good.
Good.
This, one of the things that I'm aware of is, in the context of what you just explained, is there is a great value in humanity stepping into a level of consciousness and recognizing what's possible with that living light body.
Yes.
And this group that's listening to this are really out on the front edge of that. You may look in the mirror every day and see the pimple on your nose and go, I don't know what they're talking about. But this is you. This is a small group of people on the planet that are going to be able to put into the imprinting into the ethers, if you would, this living light body, what the next generation humanity is. And there's a combination of this vast technological opportunity, this AI as it's generally called, beginning to hit new generations to where it will create unto itself. And there's some that worry about all the devastation that could occur. But the flip side of it is those that are stepping into that living light body, those that are putting it together, beginning to access consciousness in that, are forming the next generation of human species. That combination of that tremendous technology and the consciousness of the human being and the element of love. And it's being done in and around that step up of consciousness that comes in that light body. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and it's going to get off into what may appear to be the sci-fi realms, but absolutely. Part of the process of bringing in the light body is a release from the old architecture of the flesh and bone, the biological body. I know this is going to sound a bit out in the limb here, but we just look at what's coming about. So the body of the future is going to be the light essence, and in the living, well, that's not the right way to say it, in the essence part of the body. What you now know as your flesh and bones and your organs and tissues are going to be They're going to be manufactured. They're not going to be just hereditary. They're going, oof, I'm losing my channeler here.
Just lost
So,
Jeff.
back. And please understand that this does sound like sci-fi, but if you look at it, here's what's coming. Your light body will be incarnate, manifest on Earth, but your physical body is basically going to be manufactured, not tin and steel and things like that, but they're going to be, it's going to be manufactured from nanotechnology. It's going to even ultimately change the whole birth process. The womb and the sperm and the egg and all the rest of that been around for a long time. The conscious beings are going to be creating their own body from nanotechnology, and they're going to be able to easily replace parts that wear out, but with nanotechnology, the parts really won't wear out as quickly as your ancestral cellular body. It's going to sound very strange not to have a birthed body, to basically have a manufactured, but ultimately it's going to be much more conscious, much more yours, and less dependent, well, not dependent at all on ancestors. So in the future, you're going to have those who continue with the regular birth ancestral DNA process, and they're going to hold on to that very tight. They're going to insist this is what God wants. God doesn't give a damn about it because it doesn't matter. You're going to have a whole new breed of beings that have brought consciousness and what you call light body into the manufactured body. And there's going to be some who say this is the work of the devil. It is simply the work of consciousness. Can you imagine now for just a moment taking you, I mean your essence, your consciousness, and instilling it with its life force energy into a manufactured body, but it has consciousness, it has awareness, it has realization. It's not, it is its own. You now truly own your body. That is where it's going.
Now, I see that also in not just as a manufactured, go to the factory, get your manufactured parts, but those that are in that light body beginning to play in an aspect of consciousness, create it, manufacture it, build it from consciousness.
Yes.
It begins to appear.
Yes.
It's not a go to the factory. It's simply
Right.
think it and the apple appears using time, space, gravity, thought, emotion. You simply, with the consciousness of nanotechnology and the technology beyond the nanotechnology, you just create
Yes.
that consciousness.
Absolutely.
And those that hold that awareness very strongly in that aspect called Christ consciousness, that aspect that uses light to manufacture that creation to step into and become. And this is at one of the points where we're playing right now. This is at one of this thought, this discussion sets opportunity in motion to be chosen from, or not. But this is a very real experience as you begin to recognize time-space moves through you. Everything comes to you. The apple appears in your hand. As you build the apple, you can build the light body. And that light body, to a great extent, is like the vehicle, like your car. Just moves you from point A to B.
Yes.
Perfectly tuned, doesn't break down, doesn't rust, doesn't have transmission problems. Perfectly tuned forever, as long as you choose to use it. And that concept is now beginning to be made available to those that can begin to see that pathway. And it's a very exciting thing, particularly watching it come down into the earth structures.
And I call this new body basically a reactive or a servant body. Your body right now really doesn't serve you in what I would call an efficient way. But your body, the new body that I call the nanobody, is going to be very much like what you have right now. But you break a finger, you pull it off, and you get a new one. Really, quite frankly.
Just like a starfish.
Absolutely. But without the element of consciousness, which cannot be, just mimicked. It cannot be faked at all. Without that element of consciousness, the nanobody will not sustain. It just won't be able to. You can infuse it with a lot of energy, and it can walk around for a little bit, but ultimately, it's going to disintegrate. What's needed is the meld of consciousness with matter, but you don't have to go through the regular birth process. So many of you have made a claim that you're never going to incarnate again, and it's a very true claim, because you're never going to go through the birth process again. But you may come back to Earth after this physical body dies off. You may come back in consciousness, in a light body, with all of the memory attributes of what it was like to have flesh and bones that came through birthing from your ancestors. You'll come back and, through a very relatively simple and very conscious process, then create your nanobody that will, the light body will then come into and infuse in. It will have consciousness. You're going to look back one day and say, that was really strange that we had to do the birth thing, and that we had to inherit DNA, and we had to even inherit the looks of our parents and their parents. That's going to be such a crude and strange process.
Yes.
Now, I have a question for you. So here you sit as a human in your inherited body, your hand-me-down, and at the same time, right now, I'm very aware of your light body. I'm very aware of it operating in what you would call a different dimension, but it's actually not. It's right here, just kind of out of perspective. Would you tell us a little bit about what you've learned in your own light body, which is so very close to this reality right now?
Yes. So what I'm aware of is it's simply just slightly out of phase. Out of phase.
Yes.
Exists, it's conscious, it's there, it's accessible, I'm aware of it. One of the things I'm aware of it is the vastness that is consciousness is almost unimaginable. It is unimaginable. And from this light body space of newly stepping into this space, it operates in different consciousness and different language, different light frequencies. And so it's really like a little child beginning to experience itself in my reality. And I don't know what all those things I'm looking at mean or how to use them. But I am very conscious of this conversation we just had about simply the apple comes to your hand. Everything comes to you. That light body is something you will think into existence from a fully conscious place. And so, in a way, it's like, how do you bring it into phase right now? And I think that's the wrong question, bring it into phase, because it's almost like, well, how do I go back into this space and live in this space, where it's really, how do I take that space and walk in the world but not be of the world? And then hold that level of light that is so intense and allows for people to let that vibration just move through their time space, choose a different opportunity. And so how to do that at the moment, little child figuring it out, but very, very present in the awareness of what's possible.
And if I could offer a little
Yes.
advice on that, you say how to bring it into phase. It's going to sound strange, but you basically die.
Yes.
And you die and you stay alive at the same time, but you basically, you know how, I'm trying to understand your analogy here through cauldron, but you know how if you're going to flip over from, I guess you say, one server to another in your computer
yes,
world,
yes.
you switch over, and you do it on the fly. In other words, there's no period of non-service. You just flip the switch, you go from server A over to server B, and it's a death process, but the energies don't stop moving. You just click over to the other side. So in this, you basically allow a death process, painless, and one where you're fully conscious. And instead of going from physical body, switching over to light body, actually what happens is you're simultaneously switching on light body. So now they're both operating. They're both,
Yes.
they're both being in phase with time-space moving through them, and then ultimately they actually meld together.
Excellent.
If you were going to change the name from light body to another name, what would that be?
Hadn't thought about that. Let's see. Well, I would see it as a living consciousness,
Yes.
and most likely I wouldn't have an identity because it's, well, that's not true. My reality is in that space where I'm evolving all these instructions in mastering alchemy is there's two aspects. There's that unique individual reflection of creator being reflected back to creator. And there's that universal, all that is, the ocean, if you would, without an individuality, but that space of knowing, engaging, and all that is. So it would be both and going on simultaneously. I don't know that I would know what to call that.
I would call it the I am body,
Yeah,
or
yes.
embody, because now your consciousness
Yes,
is
yes.
the I am body. I also call it the body of consciousness. But whether you bring that consciousness into a biological ancestral body, whether you bring it into a steel robot body, which I wouldn't suggest, or a nano body, it doesn't really matter, but you have embodied, I embody. So, and I say that
Have you
because-
copyrighted that?
No, I have
Oh,
not.
I see. It's good to
No,
consider.
I don't copyright.
I see.
I just claim ownership, and anybody who tries to mess with it,
You have a bigger
beware.
lawyer.
Exactly.
Yes.
I am the lawyer. But now you've taken
away
Calder
from
off
you,
track.
Calder. Yes,
we'll
sorry.
go back here
Hate to interfere
to
with
the-
this thinking.
to the discussion. It doesn't matter what you embody into. Humans have gotten used to embodying into, this vessel. It doesn't matter if you embody into a tree, which is not too much fun, or you embody into this nanotechnology. It is the act of embodying. And the term light body has been used for quite a while, but there are some misconceptions about that. You think you're glowing, and I guess in a way you are, but so I would suggest even kind of a refinement of that term, a gentle refinement, so people don't imagine like a shimmering ghost-like shape suddenly coming down into their being. The light body is consciousness in the flow of time, space, light, and it's allowing that time, space to flow through it without having to stop the natural flow, flow through it without making it, having to make it dense, therefore changing the gravitational aspects that have kept this old physical body so dense and thick. So another way of putting it, you are very aware of the placement of consciousness, of you, in the flow of time, space, without inhibiting the flow, but yet allowing the experience to come forth.
Now, that's good. Very expandable.
Yes,
Also
very
very
expandable. In other words, it would be like being in the middle of a river, a mountain river stream, and being there, being very present, but never having to stop the flow of the stream. The stream keeps moving. And right now, the way it's being done is, well, you plant yourself in the middle of the stream and the water crashes around you and flows all around you and you feel the resistance and the force. That's the old way of doing it. The new way is just be there in consciousness and it continues to flow. You release yourself from the laws of gravity, but yet you're able to be in full sensory experience of embodiment.
Nicely said.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Very nice. Yeah.
I was Shakespeare.
Oh, you did well in that lifetime.
Yeah, it was okay.
Uh-huh.
So just a short discussion. Calder is telling me that his body is absolutely burning out. Well, Calder, you have a few things to learn.
You have
about
options.
about the body. Absolutely.
Okay.
He said a bad word to me.
Oh,
Yes.
well, still that human part.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we can come to a conclusion. I think this was very enjoyable for me.
Okay.
And,
I have one more question for you, however. So now you've been aware, energetically aware of these dynamics of time, space. You're very aware in the periphery, you've been working with it. Now, what will you do with it, both in your personal life and in your teachings?
So in my personal life, there were a couple of ahas, or little glimpses of how to move with this slightly differently. So in that kind of infancy child space, I have a lot of curiosity, and I'm getting more clear about, in my human space, stepping into that. All those connections with everything else have kind of really disappeared. And so I find I sit and I kind of stare into nothing. It's not nothing, it's everything. But it's starting to connect. So in that connection, this aspect of awareness in reflecting, a couple examples, reflecting back to the elementals, what's possible to elevate that earth implication would be a very interesting place to go and play for me. In this space of recognizing many of the choices between that here and that nano body, as we describe it, being created from consciousness, that's very interesting. And in my awareness in this conversation, Zadkiel and Uriel and Yeshua all standing here for this conversation, orchestrating this conversation, because their opportunity in creating that imprint through the human form being present in that consciousness is very opportunistic. And so we will have numbers of conversations, the four of us, in that space.
Good, and just a word of advice.
Yes, please.
And for you and others. It's going to be so important, again, I've talked about this before, but so important right now to find space to yourself, find that place to yourself from on a regular basis, removing from the everyday flow of time, space, of life. It's a way of not only recharging your system, but that's at the time you're going to have the greatest insights into what's really happening. So a week here or maybe 2 weeks there, but that time away is going to be so important for your creative energies, for all of you actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeshua's shaking his head.
Yes, yes.
I know this place, he says.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is actually very helpful.
And again, I summarize by saying this is such a time of convergence, and the words cannot adequately say it, so I'm going to share a picture, energy picture, a hologram with each and every one of you right now of this great convergence of technologies and energies and hopes and dreams of what you would call the past and the future, but really coming into synchronization in the now of, Jim mentioned the word bringing things into phase, things that have been so out of phase that you haven't even sensed them, seen them, felt them. They're there, but they're out of phase with the working self. And that's all coming together, and that's going to create the fusing of Earth and the elementals and humans and potentials and technology and everything else, or it will actually create a very graceful separation of the two to give those humans who are in consciousness and being in the I am their own place now without the burdens of so much of the old birthers and the old consciousness. It is not a time of disaster and destruction on this planet. Actually, it is the greatest time of expansion on this planet and for humans. So please don't fret, don't worry. It's actually, it is the dream realized right now. So let's get together and do this more often and bring more of your friends around. It was good having them.
Yes, they enjoy being here with you.
Absolutely.
So very much grateful. Thank
With
you.
that, I am the beloved Saint-Germain.